Nathan Carter had seen his fair share of legal battles, but nothing had prepared him for the pettiest war of his life. A birthday party. The party that started it all. Nathan was a judge by profession and a father at heart. When his daughter Emily turned 7, he wanted to make it special. Heavy checkmark balloons? White heavy checkmark. Heavy checkmark, a backyard bounce house? White heavy checkmark. Heavy checkmark, a dozen happy kids running around? White heavy checkmark. It was a perfect afternoon. Until she showed up. Enter Karen, the HOA tyrant. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, was a legendary menace. Heavy checkmark, she hated noise, even kids laughing. Heavy checkmark, she patrolled the neighborhood like a prison guard. Heavy checkmark, she loved issuing ridiculous fines. And today? She had set her sights on Nathan's daughter's birthday party. The first confrontation. Nathan was grilling burgers, laughing with friends, when he noticed a familiar figure stomping toward his yard. Karen, with her clipboard and a scowl. Nathan sighed. Here we go. She stopped at the gate, looking disgusted. Judge Carter, this gathering is unauthorized. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You mean my daughter's birthday party? Karen nodded firmly. According to HOA regulations, all outdoor gatherings exceeding 5 people require board approval. Nathan chuckled. Karen, that's ridiculous. Karen smirked. Rules are rules. Expect a $500 fine. Nathan folded his arms. You really want to shut down a child's birthday? Karen grinned. I'm just enforcing the law. Nathan tilted his head. You should know. I specialize in law. Karen's smirk faltered. Because what she didn't know. Nathan was about to make her regret this. HOA's first power move. Karen had made it clear. She wasn't just going to fine Nathan. She was going to ruin the party. But Nathan? Nathan wasn't playing games. Karen tries to shut it down. The next morning, Nathan woke up to a bright red envelope taped to his front door. Pushpin official HOA violation notice. Unauthorized public gathering, $500 fine. Excessive noise disturbance, $250 fine. Temporary structures without approval, bounce house. $750 fine. Nathan chuckled. $1,500? For a birthday party? Then, as if on cue. Good morning, Judge Carter. Nathan looked up. Karen stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, smug as ever. Enjoying your morning reading? She asked sweetly. Nathan folded the letter and stuffed it into his pocket. Karen, I'll make this simple. I'm not paying a dime. Karen grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Then, she pulled out her phone and started dialing. Nathan raised an eyebrow. What are you doing? Karen smirked. Calling code enforcement. Karen calls in backup. An hour later, a city inspector pulled into Nathan's driveway. A tall, graying man stepped out, clipboard in hand. Sir, we received a complaint about an illegal gathering structure. Nathan sighed. You mean the bounce house? The inspector checked his notes. Yeah. Apparently, it's an unapproved structure and a safety hazard. Nathan gestured toward the backyard. Go ahead. Inspect away. Karen stood proudly, waiting for the inspector to shut Nathan down. Instead, after a few minutes, the inspector shrugged. This setup is perfectly legal. The bounce house is on private property, meets safety standards, and isn't causing any obstruction. Karen's smug look vanished. What? That's impossible, she snapped. The inspector nodded toward Nathan. You're good to go, sir. Then he turned to Karen. Ma'am, filing false complaints is a waste of city resources. Karen's face turned red. But the HOA rules. The inspector held up a hand. Ma'am, HOA rules don't override city laws. You can't just make up violations. Karen stammered. This isn't over. Nathan smirked. Oh, Karen, it's only just beginning. Because now, Nathan wasn't just ignoring her. He was planning his counterattack. The HOA escalates the conflict. Karen had failed. Heavy checkmark, the party happened. Heavy checkmark, the bounce house stayed. Heavy checkmark, the city dismissed her complaint. But instead of giving up, she declared all-out war. Karen tries a bigger move. The next morning, Nathan was enjoying his coffee when he spotted a tow truck idling in front of his house. And next to it, Karen, grinning. Nathan set down his mug and walked outside. Karen, he said, why is there a tow truck in front of my house? Karen smirked. Your guests parked illegally on HOA property during your party. Their vehicles were in violation. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Karen, they were parked on my driveway. Karen tilted her head. Driveways are subject to HOA rules. Nathan sighed. So, let me get this straight, he said. You're trying to tow cars that were legally parked on private property? Karen grinned. Yes. Nathan chuckled. Hold that thought. Then, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Nathan pulls a power move. Within 5 minutes, a police cruiser pulled up. A grizzled-looking officer stepped out. Morning, Judge Carter, he said with a nod. Got a problem here? Nathan gestured to Karen. She's trying to illegally tow vehicles that were parked on private property. The officer turned to Karen. Ma'am, is that true? Karen folded her arms. The HOA has the right to enforce regulations. The officer raised an eyebrow. Do you have a court order to tow vehicles? Karen's face twitched. We don't need a court order. The officer cut her off. Actually, you do. And if you call for an illegal tow again, you could be looking at criminal charges. Karen's smug expression vanished. But he's violating the rules. The officer turned to Nathan. Judge Carter, do you want to press harassment charges? Nathan smiled. Not yet, he said. But I think it's time I start looking into HOA finances. Karen's eyes widened. Because what she didn't know. Nathan already had a plan. And now, it was Karen's turn to sweat. The HOA oversteps and the protagonist strikes back. Karen had tried everything. Heavy checkmark fines? Ignored. Heavy checkmark city complaints? Dismissed. Heavy checkmark illegal towing? Shut down. But instead of backing off, she made her biggest mistake yet. Karen shuts off Nathan's power. Nathan was working in his home office when suddenly, the lights flickered, then went out. He tried flipping the breaker. Nothing. Then, mobile phone with arrow, a text from his neighbor. Hey, did your power go out? HOA says it was necessary maintenance? Nathan frowned. Necessary maintenance? Then he heard it. Loud arguing outside. Nathan stepped onto his porch and saw a group of neighbors yelling at Karen. Why did you shut off our power? One of them demanded. Karen crossed her arms. The HOA is conducting routine electrical inspections. Nathan chuckled. Routine? Without notice. Karen smirked. We don't have to notify violators. Nathan stepped forward. And what exactly is my violation? Karen grinned. Unauthorized use of high-powered outdoor equipment. Nathan blinked. You mean the bounce house? Karen nodded. Nathan laughed. So let me get this straight. You cut off power to the whole neighborhood over a kid's birthday party. Karen shrugged. Rules are rules. Nathan nodded. Good to know. Then he pulled out his phone. Karen's smug expression vanished. Who are you calling? Nathan grinned. The State Utility Commission. You just violated multiple state laws. Karen's smirk disappeared. And now, she was about to face real consequences. The public expose. Within an hour, a state investigator arrived. Heavy checkmark, he reviewed the HOA's power shutoff. Heavy checkmark, he found no permits, no justification. Heavy checkmark, he confirmed Karen acted illegally. Then, the investigator turned to Nathan. Would you like to file a formal complaint against the HOA? Nathan grinned. Not just a complaint, he said. I want a full audit. Karen stammered. Wait, you can't do that. Nathan tilted his head. Karen, didn't you say rules are rules? Karen went pale. Because she knew. Nathan had just set the wheels in motion. And now, the entire HOA was under investigation. Karen's final, desperate move. Karen was losing control. Heavy checkmark, her fines were ignored. Heavy checkmark, her towing stunt was blocked. Heavy checkmark, her power shutoff backfired. But instead of cutting her losses, she went completely off the rails. Karen tries to trespass. Nathan was watching TV when his security app buzzed. Mobile phone with arrow motion detected, backyard. Nathan frowned and checked the feed. And there she was. Karen, holding a can of spray paint. Spraying violator in red across his fence. Nathan grinned. Oh, Karen. You really messed up this time. The trap springs shut. Nathan had anticipated this. After her power stunt, he had. Heavy checkmark, upgraded security cameras video camera. Heavy checkmark, set up auto-recording alerts movie camera. Heavy checkmark, saved footage to the cloud. And now, he had solid proof of Karen committing vandalism. Nathan dialed 911. Hello, yes, I'd like to report a trespassing incident. I have video evidence. Within minutes, police car light red and blue lights flashed in the driveway. Police car light. Karen froze as two officers stepped out. Ma'am, one of them said, step away from the fence. Karen tried to play it cool. I was just enforcing HOA rules. The officer raised an eyebrow. By spray painting private property? Karen stammered. It's an HOA matter. Nathan stepped forward. Actually, he said, holding up his phone, it's a criminal matter. The officers watched the video. Then, one of them cuffed Karen's wrists. Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing and vandalism. Karen's jaw dropped. You can't do this. Nathan grinned. Oh, Karen, I really can. Because now, she wasn't just losing power. She was going to jail. HOA crumbles and Karen's downfall. Karen was handcuffed in front of the whole neighborhood. And for the first time, she wasn't in control. The neighborhood turns on Karen. As the police escorted Karen to the squad car, neighbors gathered to watch. Heavy checkmark, some whispered in shock. Heavy checkmark, others recorded on their phones. Heavy checkmark, and one clapped. About time, muttered old Mr. Thompson. Karen turned red. This is a misunderstanding, she screeched. Nathan smirked. Oh, I think it's pretty clear. The officer nodded. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Karen ignored him. I built this HOA, she ranted. I made this neighborhood better. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Karen, you tried to shut down a birthday party. Karen glared. You set me up. Nathan chuckled. No, Karen. You did this all by yourself. The HOA board abandons ship. At the next emergency HOA meeting, the remaining board members were in full panic mode. Linda, the treasurer, looked exhausted. We're getting flooded with complaints, she said. One board member muttered. Half the community wants us gone. Nathan leaned back, smiling. Sounds like the people have spoken. Linda sighed. We can't keep this going. And just like that, heavy checkmark, the HOA was officially dissolved. Heavy checkmark, all fines were wiped. Heavy checkmark, Karen was permanently banned from any future HOA leadership. Nathan grinned. Guess that means I win. Karen, watching from the back of the meeting, turned pale. Because this time, she really had lost everything. Karen puts her house up for sale. The next morning, Nathan stepped outside and saw a moving truck in Karen's driveway. She was packing up. Heavy checkmark, the HOA was gone. Heavy checkmark, she was disgraced. Heavy checkmark, and now? She was leaving town. Nathan, sipping his coffee, strolled over. Morning, Karen, he said cheerfully. Karen glared. I hope you're happy. Nathan smirked. Oh, I'm ecstatic. Karen fumed. You ruined my life. Nathan tilted his head. No, Karen. You ruined your own life. And with that, Karen slammed her car door and drove away. Nathan, he simply smiled and walked back inside. Because the nightmare was over. And the neighborhood was finally free. The HOA faces full legal consequences. Karen was gone, but Nathan wasn't finished yet. Because the HOA's corruption went deeper than Karen alone. And now, it was time to bring the whole system down. The class action lawsuit. A week after Karen's disastrous downfall, Nathan got a very interesting call from his legal team. Judge Carter, we have something big. Nathan smirked. Go on. The former HOA board was illegally pocketing money from fake violations and maintenance fees for years. Nathan leaned back, grinning. How much? Over $200,000 in fraudulent fines and misused funds. Nathan nodded. File a class action lawsuit. I want every homeowner reimbursed. Within days. Heavy checkmark, dozens of homeowners joined the lawsuit. Heavy checkmark, the city backed the case, confirming HOA corruption. Heavy checkmark, the lawsuit officially went to court. And the result? It was glorious. The court ruling. A month later, Nathan stood in court, watching as the final nail went into the HOA's coffin. The judge, looking over the evidence, shook his head. This court finds that the former Oakwood Estates HOA engaged in fraudulent practices, harassment, and unlawful enforcement. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge wasn't done. As a result, all wrongfully collected funds will be returned to homeowners, and former board members will be individually fined. The remaining board members looked sick. Nathan? He grinned. Game. Set. Match. Nathan's final power move. After the ruling, one of the former board members, a nervous-looking man named Richard, approached Nathan. Judge Carter, Richard muttered. We know you hated Karen, but this lawsuit is ruining us. Nathan took a slow sip of coffee. Good. Richard swallowed hard. Is there anything we can do? Nathan smiled. There's an office building I just bought downtown. My company needs janitors. Interested? Richard's face went pale. Nathan smirked. Let me know if you're interested. Then, he walked away. Because this was justice. Karen's personal downfall. The HOA was dead. The lawsuit was won. The community was free. But what about Karen? Nathan didn't have to wonder for long. Karen's new reality. One afternoon, Nathan was grabbing coffee downtown when he noticed a familiar face behind the counter. Karen, wearing a cheap uniform. Her new job? Barista. Nathan grinned. This was too good. Nathan confronts Karen one last time. He strolled up to the counter, barely containing his laughter. Karen's eyes widened when she saw him. You, she hissed. Nathan smirked. Karen, fancy seeing you here. I'll take a large black coffee. No, wait. Make it a triple espresso. I've had a long morning. Karen gritted her teeth and rang up the order. Nathan tapped his card to pay. Didn't expect to see you here, Karen. But, a job is a job. Karen glared. I hope you're happy. Nathan sipped his coffee. Oh, I am. But you know what would make me even happier? Karen crossed her arms. What? Nathan leaned in. If you put extra whipped cream on my next order. You work for tips now, right? Karen's face turned red. Nathan grinned. This was poetic justice. The ultimate irony. As Nathan turned to leave, he noticed the store manager walking by. Hey, Karen, the manager said. Someone left a mess in the restroom. Can you clean it up? Nathan chuckled. Karen, who had once tried to run the neighborhood, was now scrubbing toilets. Karma really was a beautiful thing. Epilogue and final mic drop. With Karen gone and the HOA dissolved, Oakwood Estates finally felt like home again. And Nathan, he was finally able to relax. The neighborhood after Karen. Nathan sat on his porch, sipping coffee, watching the community come to life. Heavy checkmark, families laughed, kids played freely. Heavy checkmark, no more bogus fines, no more Karen patrols. Heavy checkmark, and the birthday party? Already being planned bigger for next year. For the first time in years, there was peace. Then, his neighbor, Mr. Thompson, strolled up with a grin. Hey, Judge Carter, he said, handing him a piece of paper. Nathan unfolded it and laughed out loud. Pushpin notice of violation. Infraction. Throwing the greatest birthday party in HOA history. Fine. 1,000 high fives from the neighborhood kids. Nathan chuckled. You really made a fake HOA violation? Thompson grinned. Had to keep the tradition alive. Nathan shook his head. I'll frame it. Then he leaned back, watching as kids ran through the neighborhood, their laughter filling the air. Karen was gone. The HOA was dead. And this was exactly how it should have been all along. With a final, satisfied smirk, Nathan muttered,